Lady in Blue died in 1665. Her body is still incorrupt. All in all, the Lady in Blue bilocated over 500 times from her cloistered convent to the New World, bilocating from Spain to bring salvation to our shores.
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, because God is speaking to you and me and the church and the world, and here we get to listen in on the conversations. These encounter stories with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences. Welcome. I am your host, Trapper Jack. There we were sitting there at Thanksgiving, and someone with a mouthful of mashed potatoes, I think it was, said something about, pilgrims and whatever they ate. And I said, well, do you know the story, beyond the 102 souls there at Plymouth Rock and all that? Do you know the story about the blue nun, the cloistered nun in Spain who bilocated at least 500 times to the southwest, what's now Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, who led some 60,000 indigenous people, otherwise known as Native Americans, otherwise known as Indians, to baptism and Christianity? And it was, what? I said, exactly. Why don't we know this? It's like one of those stories where, wow, it's incredible. It's incredible. Maria de Ágreda, otherwise known as Mary of Jesus, the venerable Maria de Ágreda. That means she's on the pathway, possibly to sainthood, canonization, and all that. And how they prove the case that this woman, this cloistered nun who was going nowhere at her convent in Spain, somehow spiritually traveling and physically traveling to what is now Southwest United States. An amazing story. And I have a link in the show notes of I think it was a priest doing a homily on this, because there's documentation, there's the proof of how we know this to be true. So I just want to go back. We'll have a new episode next week, but this is one you may not know. And if you do know it, it's just great to revisit this and also some attached saintly type stories as a part of this episode as well. So enjoy here at Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, where we start with Thanksgiving. 1620, you have Plymouth Rock. You got Mayflower van lines pulling up, dumping off all the furniture of these pilgrim people coming here for religious freedom, Okay, so they set up camp, and they a year later have their first harvest, and they invite the neighbors. I can't call them Native Americans, can I? It wasn't America yet, so Indians will do. It's non-PC, but try to walk it off if it bothers you. Walk it off, just walk it off. Okay. 3-day party for the original Thanksgiving. 3-day party, kind of like what we would do now. Lots of food, drink, football. They had the big screen plugged into the windmill. They're all ready to go. Fat pants, no, elastic had not yet been invented. So instead, look at the pilgrims. Just picture in your mind a pilgrim. What do you see? They are so cinched up, they definitely do not have fat pants. Look at them, buckles everywhere. They got buckles on their pants, buckles on their shoes, buckles on their hats. These people were afraid of exploding. There's no other explanation. There was no room for pie. I mean, look at them. They're all cinched up. So they had a party for 3 days. Anything else we need to know about this? No, that's about it. Now the story you don't know. 1620. It's 1620, the exact same time that little Christian community is getting all the attention of what's going on there, that a much bigger Christian story is going on in what is now Southwest America, what we think of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. It was owned by Spain or run by Spain, however all that worked right at the time. Now, you have a Franciscan friar. He was like the superior of the missionary work being done in that region, okay? Interesting things were going on. 1620. And each year during the summer, and for a number of years, up would ride about a dozen Humano tribesmen to say, way out east, there's, they spoke just like me, way out east, there's a bunch of us, we have a big tribe, thousands of us, and we would like more Christian teaching and to be baptized. It's like, what? It's like, what? And every year they would kind of write up, and the friar would say, well, we don't have enough missionaries to get out to where you are. Anyway, 1629 now rolls around, and new supplies, a new caravan shows up at this fort, which is about 14 miles south of what is now Albuquerque, New Mexico. And there's 30 priests ready to do missionary work. And there's a letter. There's a letter for the Franciscan friar, the superior over all this missionary work. And the letter says, from the Archbishop in Mexico City, are you running into Indians who already have some Christian Catholic knowledge before we even get to them? Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. If so, write a report. Let me know what you know, because we're hearing about a nun, a cloistered nun in Spain who is having some sort of experiences while in Spain with the people over here. They see her, she sees them. There's something going on there, so write a report if you know anything. Month later, 50 Humano Indian tribesmen write up, and one of them, a one-eyed chief, and again, they're ready to say, you really should go farther east. We got lots of people here. And they start talking about this lady in blue. There's this lady in blue, and she walks among us, and she teaches us, and she's preparing us for baptism, and she flies in the air to us. What? She flies in the air to us, and she's in blue, and she's pretty, and she's young, and it's like, and he said, come on in. So they come into the fort, or wherever they were, this fort kind of thing. There's a picture on the wall of a nun in a blue habit. And they say, does she look like that? Well, yeah, but a lot younger and a lot prettier than that one. Okay. And where are you? Well, we're about, basically they're 500 miles to the east, these tribes people. And now that they have priests, they send 2 priests with these Humano Indians to go to their settlement to see what is going on there. So they head out. And before they get there to the settlement, there's this group of Indians of this Humano Indian tribe processing towards them, carrying a cross decorated in flowers. And it's like, how did you know we were coming? Well, the lady in blue told us, and she helped decorate this cross. And she's been teaching us, preparing us for baptism. And it's like, how many of you want to be baptized? And all of them raised their hands. Now, by this point, they're back to the settlement, and there's like thousands of them. And they want to be baptized. They're all raising their hand, and the moms were holding up the arms of their little baby infants, just kind of holding like, me too, me too. And so the priests began to baptize with water in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're going around baptizing, and then more Indian tribes, different Indian tribes, start arriving at that settlement. We're here to be baptized. The lady in blue told us that we should come here to be baptized. She's been preparing us for this. And it's like, and they kept coming, and they kept coming. 10,000. 10,000 baptisms went on. Now, the Bible, the high number is 3,000, right? Here's 10,000 Indians being baptized. In all, over time, 60,000 were baptized because this lady in blue would come in and she would teach them and bring rosaries and teach them how to pray and teach them about Christianity, and she would tell them where to go to be baptized, this lady in blue. So the friar, the superior, writes his report, his 111-page report about everything he's seen. And when they were at that first settlement, one of the things he put in his report was they brought out their sick, over 200. These people, the lady in blue says to pray over these people. Okay, so they again pray in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The priest said everybody was healed. Over 200 healings that day. He's writing this all up in the report, and he himself goes to the archbishop with his report. The archbishop says, keep going, go to Spain, meet this woman, find out what's going on here. So he travels to Spain, and he meets Sister Maria de Ágreda, or Mary of Jesus. And she starts explaining what's going on here, how she has this bilocation where she begins to describe like the one-eyed Indian chief. She describes the terrain. Yeah, you have a river kind of running through here, and there's a mountain over here. I mean, just nailing all of it. She starts talking about the 2 priests who are baptizing, describing what they look like and how they live their lives and things about them. I mean, she's just nailing everything to the point where there's no doubt in this friar's mind that she's got somehow, some way. She mentions how she has visited over 500 times, sometimes 4 times a day, different tribes, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas area. Everything matches up. What she says, what he knows, what's in his report. 60,000 people came to Christ, became Christians, Catholic Christians, during this time between 1620 and about in the early 1630s. This stuff was still going on. Just amazing. She died in 1665. She was exhumed in 1909 and found to be incorrupt. She looked like the day she died. They exhumed her again in 1989. Same. The doctor was stunned. It said that the doctor was just stunned that nothing had happened. She looked exactly like the report said from 1909. In the 1990s in Spain, there was a survey of the most influential women ever in Spain. Maria de Ágreda was top 10. Everybody knows her in Spain. If you go on YouTube looking for her, all the documentaries are in Spanish. Here in the U.S., there's just a smidgen of our knowledge about Mary of Jesus. She wrote a book, actually a bunch of books. I think it's 6 volumes, called The Mystical City of God. I referenced that actually in an earlier podcast. Mary appeared to her, Jesus, and I think others too, over a period of time. And Mary told her, she said, the Bible's about Jesus. I'm going to tell you I'm going to fill in the gaps for you about my life, Joseph, Jesus, and all this. And so she told her the story, and Maria wrote it down. Actually, we have a link on the show notes of this episode 83 at touchbyheaven.net. It's free because it's public domain in the U.S., so we have an audiobook link for you. It's about 20 hours long. There's some misprints, there are some misunderstandings, especially with the French version of the book. So there was like this back and forth, this isn't theological. No, it is theological. Some people didn't like the style. It was written in the Baroque style of the time, and that kind of put some people off, because if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. What do you say? Anyway, so, but if you want to hear it, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, but there's kind of still a back and forth. So should she be a saint? Some popes on her side, I think some not. It's just, by all accounts, sure sounds like a saint to me, I'll tell you. The Incorruptible, that's pretty rare stuff. Being able to bilocate like that, to bring 60,000 to Christianity, sure sounds like a saint to me. It does. But anyway, so there's the other Thanksgiving story, okay? Final score, Indians 60,000, Pilgrims 102. You probably get really tired of me saying, well, I woke up this morning, there was this song playing in my head, but there was. And sometimes it means something. And I asked my son, I said, what's that song that I knew a couple of words and hummed a little bit? Oh, that's the band Of Monsters and Men. Well, of course, who doesn't remember Of Monsters and Men? And I had to figure out what the song was. Have it on my phone here. That one. Anyway, it's called Little Talks. Oh, I'd call that direction. Little Talks. What I just did, that's a little talk. I have a couple more, but this time involved with phone calls and involved with saints and saintly type people here. That's the connecting fiber of all these little talks. So as I sat there yesterday in church at a funeral for a friend's father, and when I'm sitting there, it kind of dawns on me, I'm sitting in the parish of St. Anthony of Padua. St. Anthony. I mean, the St. Anthony, the one you pray to when you lose stuff. The patron saint of lost articles and people. Are you up to speed on this saint? I'm telling you, this guy comes through every time. The busiest saint on the planet is St. Anthony. You pray that prayer, Tony, turn around. What is it? Something's lost and can't be found. And you say, please go find it. I'm telling you, 5 minutes later, it shows up. It doesn't matter how long you've been looking. It's amazing. Those of you who know, right? Busiest saint, one of the most popular saints ever, and the busiest saint. There are saints sitting around, twiddling their thumbs, eating Cheetos. Yeah, look at their orange fingers. Look. Not St. Anthony. No way, no how. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how do you become the patron saint of lost articles and things? What happened in his life? I should look that up. I did, and I'll tell you the answer in just a second here. Sometimes when it comes to articles, you've looked in one place a bazillion times, and then suddenly it's there, and it's like, how did I miss? I didn't miss it. Tony? Was that you, Tony? It's that kind of thing. So I thought, well, of all the people I've talked to about St. Anthony stories, I remember talking to Cheryl about this, so let's give a call to Cheryl.
Hello.
Hey, Cheryl's Trapper. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Do you have a St. Anthony story? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
So my daughter and I is actually just last weekend, we went out of town So we were coming back. We came back on Sunday, and she had to go dialysis. She goes to dialysis from 8 at night until like 2 in the morning. And so she went straight from my house to dialysis, and it really wipes her out. So afterwards, she went home to her own house, and she pretty much slept all day Monday. And on Tuesday, she calls me, and she was freaking out. She's like, I cannot find my wallet anywhere. She said, I've been through all of my things. I've emptied all of my bags. And she was just really upset. And so she said, well, you go check the car. So I went out and I checked the car, and I couldn't find it anywhere.
What kind of money she have in it? What was in?
She had $600 in it.
Yeah, it's probably worth finding.
Yeah, I know. The license and the credit card are one thing. She said, Mom, I had $600 in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why do you carry that much cash on you? Call dialysis. We went back through everything, what she was wearing. Last she could remember having it was on our way home. We stopped for dinner. And so she knew what she was wearing. So I said, call dialysis. Maybe it fell out of your pocket. And she uses the same chair every time she goes. So I said, maybe it's in your chair. So we hung up, and so I had remembered, my neighbor down the street when I was growing up, telling me about the St. Anthony, and she would lose things. She would pray to St. Anthony. So I didn't know anything about St. Anthony, and this was all kind of new to me. So I just hopped on my phone, and I did a search of St. Anthony, and immediately it popped up. And I read the prayer, Dear St. Anthony, please come around. Something's lost and can't be found. And I just said, please help Alexis find her wallet. And I screenshot it, and I sent it to Alexis. And within a couple of minutes, I get a reply, and she says, I found it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I called her, and I said, where was it? She said, Mom, it was in my Champion backpack. She said, I looked through that backpack 15 times. She said, I took everything out of the backpack. I turned it upside down. She said, I don't know how I missed it. And I said, did you see the prayer? She said, I didn't even see the prayer till after I found it. She said, I think your prayer really, helped me to find it. So we were both really blown away by it. It was really exciting.
She had has she dumped the bag, basically?
Yes, she took everything out of the bag several times and turned the bag upside down and shook it.
I love it.
And yeah, it was amazing. We were both so blown away, and we just laughed. We're just so happy about it because besides the fact that she found her wallet, it's more like proof. It's just more like this proof that we're on the right track and we're doing the right thing and we're finding the right answer. So it was pretty amazing.
It is. A wallet is not a small thing. I'm assuming it's like the size of your hand. I don't know. How big's her wallet?
Yeah, it was just one of those little wallets that you can just slide a couple cards in. It was just a small wallet because she doesn't really carry a purse. She just puts her wallet in her pocket. So, and I went back and looked, and it was 3 minutes from the time I sent her that prayer till she responded with, I found it. I was just amazed at how fast that happened.
The guy is amazing.
All right. Well, it's his gift.
It's his gift. I'm not sure how that started, but yeah. How did that? I've never looked up how that started, but how he becomes the patron saint of that.
I look up everything. I just read as much as I can, and I started reading about the different saints, and it said that he had helped find people and things and religious relics and all kinds of stuff, but I'm trying to get an understanding of the saints. I was brought up in a Baptist house, and we only prayed to God. It's now I feel like I'm learning so much, and there's so much. There's so many more resources that God has made for available to us that I didn't even know anything about.
Yeah, well, the church figured this out a long time ago, and it is biblical, but it was just part of the early church doctrine. It's part of, if you kind of take a step back from it, it's a beautiful way of just acknowledging the body of Christ. And St. Paul talks about how, you have all these bazillion different pieces and parts that make up a body. Well, the same thing goes for this body of faith with Christ at the head, and the rest of us are our own little individual pieces and parts too, and we all rely on each other, and we ask, if I go to you and say, please pray for me, you're going to do that, right? So
Right.
why wouldn't I go to Mary? Why wouldn't I go to St. Anthony? Why wouldn't I go to somebody who we know was holy and we know is in heaven? Why wouldn't you go to that person and pray? They're more alive now than ever, so.
I didn't realize that, like, anybody else in heaven could hear us.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
honestly, I
We're all
thought only,
connected.
God could hear us.
No, we're all connected. We're all connected. I mean, where does it say that they can't hear us? In fact, it says just the opposite. It says just the opposite. There's some things in Revelation too. I'll look them up. Maybe I'll put this onto the podcast as well. Different things that are written that let us know that they're there for us and praying for us. Yeah, we're all still connected. Heaven very much is connected to earth.
I really appreciate you taking the time to explain things to me. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless you, Cheryl. Yeah, in Revelation, what it is it's chapter 5, and it talks about how the angels and elders are offering up the prayers of the saints here on earth like incense to the throne of God, offering up the prayers, and they rise up to the throne of God like incense. So there's that. In Hebrews 11, it talks about the witnesses, the heroes and martyrs who surround us as we run the race here. And then those are just a couple of examples, but and interesting, too, is that in the early church fathers had no arguments whatsoever with the entire concept of praying to saints. We're not praying to the dead. They're more alive than ever. That's the deal. We're not praying to dead. We're praying to living saints who are interceding for us, part of the body of Christ and all that. So early on, there are no records of any fight over this concept at all. Now, when it comes to how does one become the patron saint of lost stuff, here's how that came to be. Dad's a rich dude. He's born into nobility. Dad's the governor of Lisbon, Portugal. Anthony, who was born Fernando, joins the religious life at age 15. Smart guy. At age 17, he starts studying the Bible, and it is said he pretty much memorized it. He knew the Bible. He could quote the Bible. He understood it, everything. That's why he became a doctor of the faith. And there are not a lot of those, but he knew the Bible, and he memorized it. But somewhere along the way there, while he was in school, there was someone else there too, a novice. And the novice is said to have swiped, as in stole, the book of Psalms that belonged to Anthony. And he split. He was done with religious life, this novice. He split with the book. And so Anthony prayed to God for the return of the book. And he got the book. And the novice, they both came back. He came back to religious life. He gets his book back. From that story, Anthony becomes the patron saint of lost articles and people and anything lost, anything whatsoever. How did he become? Oh, if you see a statue of Anthony, sometimes you'll see him with the baby Jesus, because apparently somebody along the way, when they looked at Anthony, they saw him bathed in light, and he was holding the Christ child. And whoever saw this just kind of went, whoa. And Anthony said, tell you what, if you can just keep that to yourself until I'm dead. But a lot of times you'll see that, or you'll see a lily involved, just the purity of Anthony. He only lived to age 36, by the way, only 36, and was canonized in less than a year. But I'll get to that in just a second here, because when he was 25 years old, 5 Franciscan friars came through where he was, and where are you going? Morocco. Ooh, wow, that's kind of dangerous. That's what are you going to do? Well, we're going to spread the gospel, Christianity, in a Muslim area. It's like, okay, good luck. 5 months later, the 5 Franciscans came back dead. Anthony thinks, ooh, that'd be great. I should go too. What? He wants to be a martyr. He's always wanted to be a martyr. He's always wanted to preach the gospel and die for it. That's his goal. So he asked permission to go to Morocco. Not to die necessarily, but if it happens, great. And they said yes. So off he goes to Morocco. God had other plans, because Anthony got very sick. He couldn't preach much of anything. He was sick for months, and so he had to come back home. Everyone quickly discovered this guy knew things. This guy knew the Bible. This guy understood it. This guy was smart, and he got smarter the longer he talked. And there was also something else they sensed, a holiness about him. A holiness. And so they sent him out to preach in northern Italy, and people came and they saw the holiness, and they were inspired by what he was preaching about. People would show up with scissors, not to harm him, to clip parts of his garment because they knew this was a holy man. This was like a saint on earth. They came with scissors. Let's get a little hair. Let's get a little of this. Yeah. He ended up living at the end of his life. The last several years were in Padua, which is near Venice. But the Holy Spirit comes to him and says, you need to get home. And it told him why. And he went home, and sure enough, his dad had been accused of murder. A body had been buried in his garden. The true story was there were a couple of young guys who didn't like each other. One kills the other, buries him in the garden. Somehow everyone thinks Anthony's dad did it because, well, it was in his garden and whatever else. So he gets accused of it. And he might have even been convicted of it. I don't remember. But Anthony shows up. And this is Anthony's big miracle. I don't know if there's any bigger miracle than this one. He takes everyone to the tomb of the dead man. And he says, open up the tomb. They do. Unwrap the dead guy. They do. And Anthony asked the dead guy, did my father kill you? And the dead guy talks and said, he did not. No, he did not. And then the dead guy says, I'm a sinner. I need to be absolved of my sins. And he absolves him. And then he died again, if you will. I would call that a miracle. That's a crazy story, but there you go. When he died at age 36. And later they exhumed his body. And was he one of the incorruptibles? He was not. Whole body had decayed, except for his tongue. His tongue was as if he had just laid down. His tongue was in perfect condition. Isn't that interesting? Interesting. And his fingers still had no orange dust from Cheetos. Just saying. I'm just saying. Canonized within a year. That's pretty close to a record for canonization. A very holy man. He is St. Anthony of Padua.
Here's your most recent voicemail from Gary Giacchetti, left at 1:28 p.m.
Yeah, hey, Trapper Jack. This is Gary Giacchetti, the sculptor from the podcast this summer, 67, I think. Yeah, I got another call from heaven, but I'd like to ask what you think. Give me a call back, Ray. Thanks. Bye.
Call from heaven. I love it. Another saintly connection, another little talk. This involves, Gary Giacchetti was episode 67, and if you haven't heard it, it's called Still Casting Nets, has to do with saints. And I don't want to ruin what happens, but there's just this great surprise that comes out of left field on an episode I love so much. But at the end of the episode, we were left with Gary wanting so badly as a sculptor to do just saints. He would love just to be doing saints. Bronze would be great, but it's expensive, and he knows that, for churches or wherever the case would be, but that's what he wants to do. And he's waiting for a sign. He's doing a statue of St. Therese right now, little flower, and often she'll send you a message of flowers. Well, no message so far. And it's like, where's the sign going to come from?
Trapper Jack.
Hey, traveler, where you going?
I'm heading down to the studio in New Jersey.
Oh, very good. Very good. You got a sign?
Let me explain it to you. I had proposed a St. Dominic statue I work at Mount St. Mary College. I'm an adjunct professor. The college was founded by the Sisters of St. Dominic of the Rosary. And when I first started there, the head of my division, Arts and Letters, was Sister Catherine, who was one of the nuns. And she was leaving. I said, Sister Catherine, wouldn't it be nice, if we did a statue of St. Dominic to put outside the Dominican house? So just Monday, I'm leaving my class. I'm walking down the stairwell. I think of St. Dominic of the Rosary. Your podcast came on my phone.
Just automatically.
Yeah. I mean, in my pocket. That opening chime, that opening little thing that I knew right away it was that. And this is the Monday after your episode on Mary, Mother of the Rosary. Isn't that? I mean, I never, ever. I mean, I've butt dialed people, but never has your podcast come on automatically.
Yeah, that episode was called Mary, Our Lady of the Rosary, and Saint Dominic. Right. Dominic is the one she gave it to in the 1200s.
And I'm just a little bit confused because I don't know where to take this or where to go with this.
It may be going by itself. I mean, it may just be, you're getting your sign. You're getting your sign. Something's happening here.
Right.
I just came from a talk that I gave, a lot of it about Mary. It was really interesting as I was putting together which parts I put in, which parts I leave out and all that. I started getting the song. Do you remember the singing nun song, Dominica, Nika, Nika? I don't even know what it was. It was from the 60s, right?
Yep.
Because I get songs in my head and they start I'm going, why am I getting that? Well, Dominique, and that led me to Dominic, which led me to talk about the rosary.
Wow.
So we're both being headed into the rosary here. It sounds like someone's good. Well, the other thing on your episode, when you were making your St. Andrew, weren't you using the internal skeleton from a St. Dominic?
Absolutely. Yep. So it's all connected in some way.
Yeah.
In some way, and then it's all a wonderful mystery. Where it goes, I don't know that I have a story, but I definitely got a phone call from heaven, is what I'm thinking.
That's a great sign, though. So basically, you're waiting. So whose decision is it whether or not you're given the go-ahead on this, Dominic?
Well, it really just needs funding. I guess the president of the college. I met with the spiritual leader, the priest, who's assigned to the college. Wednesday was Founders Day, which is another, so this happened on Monday. Wednesday was Founders Day, where they're celebrating St. Dominic and the Sisters of St. Dominic of the Rosary. All this happened, within a couple days of each other. So I just think there's something there, and I don't exactly know what it is.
But let's just put it this way. Right now, I think you have a great sign. Right now, you just have a beautiful sign.
I cannot disagree with you. I mean, I think that was loud and clear that at that moment that I thought of St. Dominic, your podcast came on.
I love it.
And the podcast is isn't it great?
This is great. That's just great. I would check in with Dominic, St. Dominic. I would I start doing some prayers to him and ask him for some future sign, some other kind of sign, guidance. He may play a role in this. He might be playing a role in this too. These are real people. They're very alive. They're all alive.
That's the beauty of the saints. That's why it's such a dedication to the saints. And I have a good priest friend who said, make sure you make them human. Their likenesses they were human. I mean, we are the communion of saints. We're part of that.
Thanks, Gary. And if you were to get a sign from Dominic, you would think it would have something to do with the rosary, wouldn't you? It's got to be. Back when Mary first gave Dominic the rosary in the early 1200s, and by the way, Dominic and Anthony of Padua lived, kind of overlapped each other. So there in the early 1200s, when Dominic was given the rosary and Mary said to him, preach this and pray this every day, had to do with a heresy she wanted snuffed out. I'll tell you about that in just a second here. But the rosary initially was 3 sets of 50 Hail Marys, so 150 total. And it wasn't called the rosary yet. That would come later. It would come with the thought in mind of every time you said a Hail Mary, you were giving a rose to Mary. There's your rosary. But initially, you had your joyful, sorrowful, glorious mysteries, 3 sets of 50 Hail Marys. And the Hail Mary at that time, well, that's gone through some changes too. Back then, it was, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. That was the Hail Mary. The rest was added later. The rosary then also added the Our Father, the Glory Bees, and then at Fatima in 1917, the O My Jesus, forgive us our sins part of the rosary. Now the heresy. Jesus has a habit of sending his mom at really critical times, right? Like Fatima. That was a critical time. What was going on in the early 1200s? A horrible heresy was going on. Bottom line, it was, your body is evil. Material things, evil. Spirit, good. Body, material, evil. That there were really 2 gods battling each other, the good and the evil, and they were really equal. And Jesus, he wasn't really man. I mean, everything was just being ripped apart by this heresy. So Dominic and his bishop were kind of out there leading the brigade, if you will, against this heresy and praying this and preaching this rosary until it got snuffed out, which, of course, it did. And that rosary today, beautiful. Still your greatest spiritual weapon. So much for the little talks from this little guy and my little podcast. Thank you so much for listening to Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. I do need your story. Contact me at touchedbyheaven.net. And our ever so quick Patreon shout out goes to Betty Carty, who's also a pilgrim, by the way. Yep, so am I. So is my wife. So is a whole bunch of other people. We pilgrimaged to Medjugorje together. And thank you, Betty, for being part of our Patreon family to make this all go week to week here at Touched by Heaven. If you'd like to do the same, come here to this episode or go to patreon.com, search for Trapper Jack, and thank you so much for that. See you next week here at Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. And when it comes to testimonials, you just can't top.
And I've butt dialed people, but never has a podcast come on automatically.